What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the stream. Let me know if you can see me and let me know if you can hear me as we set to get things rolling here on a Thursday night, Cardinals off day. So bring your questions because there's no ready-made content on an off day. Didn't play a game today, but I'm sure we will find plenty to talk about. In fact, I put out a tweet announcing this live stream a few hours ago and solicited some replies on that tweet as to what folks might want to talk about tonight. So if nothing else, if I sit here and I'm talking to myself all night, well, that's okay. I'll be able to at least answer the questions that popped up on Twitter. So you can't lose. Hit like on this stream if you would do so. Before we really get going, hit like. Let's see how high we can get the likes. 16 of you in here already, which is incredible. Each of you, if you could hit that like button, helps me out a whole heck of a lot. And then everybody's happy. So get those comments in. You do have to be a subscriber to comment, but that's easy because it's free to subscribe. The button's right there on the screen. It's the red play button that says subscribe. You can't miss it. So hit it if you want Cardinals content all season long. That's what we're doing here on this channel. Let me quickly close the baseball reference page for Richie Palacios. There's no reason to have that up. And we'll get started here in just a minute. Make sure you retweet as well. If you are coming here from Twitter, you found my tweet over there, hit that retweet button on my tweet so more people can find out that we're talking Cardinals baseball here on a Thursday night. I'm replying to a tweet. Gavin says I release a lot of bangers. I need to apologize to him because he made a comment about my Richie Palacios tweet, where I started the tweet by saying, look, I'm going to fully preface this by acknowledging that Andrew Kittredge has been unbelievable. He's been fantastic. But do y'all know Richie Palacios' OPS right now? And he said, Andrew Kittredge is currently a top 5 non-closer relief pitcher in the NL, currently sits at the top of the league leaders for holds. And I thought he was kind of coming at me with that tweet. But I think he said he was just lamenting on losing Richie for the rest of the commenters, which is fine. He was going on the commenters, not on me. All right. I'll say join our live stream, Gavin, because I'm talking about you, because I brought up your tweet. All right, get those comments in, and in a second we'll get it started. For people who are longtime listeners of the stream, you know that I can't type words and say different words at the same time. It's not a skill that I possess. Look at that. We got 17 likes. You guys are doing your job. Get a few more. If you're in this stream, hit that like button like it's your job, and then we'll get started. I'm going to make sure Audacity is going. If you miss out on any part of the stream tonight, you'll be able to listen to it back on Spotify, on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts. It'll all be up for you tomorrow. There won't be a video version on Spotify because I don't like how the video of a live stream is choppy because it's the live version and, your internet doesn't always catch every frame. So I just go audio only on Spotify for people who don't want to deal with, I get secondhand embarrassment if I'm watching a replay of something and it's like, oh, that's not really high quality video. No, it's not. I'm not a video guy, but the audio will hopefully be there. Actually, I can guarantee you the audio will be there on Spotify because it's not through the internet. It's local on my computer. 24 likes. Jeff Gordon. I bet you didn't think I was going to throw a NASCAR reference at you, but that's how many likes we're at. We're up to 26. I'm going to shut up about the likes. You're going to keep liking. You're going to get your comments in, and then we're going to get started in 3, 2, 1. What's going on, everyone, and welcome in to this evening's edition of b-schaeff Daily Live. It's Brenden Schaeffer, St. Louis Cardinals writer for KMOV, talking some Cardinals baseball on a Thursday on the team's off day between the series against the Tigers, which did not go the way the Redbirds wanted, and this weekend series coming up beginning Friday night at Busch against another AL Central foe, the White Sox, who the Cardinals should probably sweep if we're being altogether honest about the expectations, but will they do it? Will they come up with the much-needed, not only series win, but can they sweep the White Sox, a team that will come into Friday night's game 1-13 with their road record so far in 2024? I'll repeat that. The White Sox are 1-13. They have won a road game. Good for them. They have lost 13 road games. Not as good for them. So can the Cardinals take advantage of that despite everything going on with this team right now? Offensively, a little bit of trouble in the bullpen, a little bit of trouble in the back end of their rotation. All that kind of good stuff. We're going to get to your questions right off the bat because I don't have any soliloquy. I don't have a spiel. I don't have anything other than to say, hit that subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner of this video, the red subscribe button, if you would like to join the live chat. That's the way to do it, just so that I can make sure folks who are showing up here may not know what we do. We do Cardinals talk all the time and want to make sure you guys are subscribed so you don't miss the next one. But I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. Both Spencer and Kevin, what's up, boys, said I should let everybody know in advance when I'm going to do a stream, as I did tonight. Let me know if, as a viewer of the stream, that helps you. Do you like to know in advance? I think the reason it was easier to do tonight is because there was an off day. So normally I'm coming on after a game, and you don't know when the game's going to end. That's the beauty of baseball. It's not on a time clock. But because of this situation where there was no night game, and also my fall to spring bowling league is over for the session, I have Thursday nights free now. So that's what we're doing here. Jared got the notification. He appreciated it. Zach, right off the bat, wants to know my expectations for when Dylan Carlson returns. Yeah, let's go ahead and start there because DC hit a left-handed home run tonight in Memphis. That's right. He's played a few rehab games down there. I think today was his second or third game, not 100%. I saw a tweet asking me whether I expect Dylan Carlson, I think the question was, should Dylan Carlson be in center field for the Cardinals on Friday night? And I'm going to say yes. Let's just rock and roll. As long as they're playing in Memphis. I guess I didn't check to see if the Redbirds were home today or if they're on the road. But Memphis is just a quick jaunt down the road. And I think Dylan Carlson would be itching to come back. I don't think he would have any problem with quick drive down, I-55 or up I-55. Unfortunately, it looks like they're in Charlotte. So that might be a little tougher. But you can fly him in. How about Sem Robertson, by the way? 1.77 ERA. After tonight, I just checked the scoring there in Charlotte. Memphis 5, Charlotte 1. That's pretty cool. I might pull up that box score. Talk a little Memphis Redbirds tonight. Sem Robertson, he's a young guy, so let's not put the cart before the horse. But if Steven Matz goes on the IL, you got to maybe consider it, don't you? Team could use a spark. You don't want to do it, though, too early, right? You don't want to bring up a guy too early and have it be a whole thing again. Right, I wanted to see Victor Scott get a chance. He got a chance. It didn't go well, so you adjust. He was 0 for tonight, by the way. So JC, 3 walks. Dylan goes 2 for 3 with the home run. 286 average, a 1,200 OPS. I assume that's over a very small sample, obviously, down there in Memphis. Nick Dunn, a couple of hits. Raposo, Prieto, Luke, and Baker with base hits. 0 for 4 for Jordan Walker, hitting just 154. But he hasn't played that many games yet, so let's not go crazy about Jordan Walker. It's going to be a work in progress. But that's what's going on there. Yeah, look, Zach, I would play DC. I would get him up here tomorrow. I don't know how realistic that is, but I think, look, man, when he was finishing up spring training, he was raring to go. He was in a place where he had been playing really well, been seeing right-handed pitching really well, and the guy needs some momentum on his side. I would say coming off of a home run game, you're not going to get much better than that. Let's go ahead and bring him up. That would be my thought. The Cardinals may have a different thought. We'll find out on Friday. But that's a good question to start off with. Thank you, Zach. What's up, Brandon? Tim, happy to be here for a live stream. Joey is here. Ikta is here. Daniel, Locomotion, Mike, and then Joey coming in with a question. Who's been your biggest surprise and biggest disappointment so far? I'm going to assume that means for the Cardinals because that's kind of what we're talking about here. Biggest surprise, man. So, I wouldn't say Andrew Kittredge because I expected him to be great. On the pitching side, there haven't been any surprises. I would say that Kyle Gibson has been very impressive, but I thought he would be good for this team. So I don't know if I would use the term surprise for that. Same thing with Sonny Gray. Did I expect a 1.16 ERA for him through 23 innings? No, I did not. But I thought he'd be very good. So I don't want to say, he surprised me because I thought the Cardinals got a good one. And Sonny Gray, shoot, we wrote about him how many different times in spring training? Yeah, for a reason. I mean, he's a good one. So I don't know if I could say him as a surprise. Again, Helsley, I don't know that I'm too surprised to see his success so far. JoJo, I mean, maybe if you watched spring training and you were worried about JoJo, you might have said him, but we saw last year what he's capable of doing. There haven't been a ton of big-time surprises on the pitching side. I will say that almost said Junior Fernandez. Ryan Fernandez, I would say, has been a pleasant, positive, if you're going to say surprise, only because I didn't know anything about him before the season. So that's a way to be surprised. Before going down to spring training, I didn't really know much about Ryan Fernandez, the Rule 5 pick. And the fact that he has quickly gone from guy who you don't really want to use under any circumstance because you don't know him yet, like Ollie was really waiting for a moment that he could get him in. And even in that first Dodgers series, I would have argued and did argue that Ollie could have thrown him in a moment where they were down by 4 or 5 runs, but still was reluctant to do it. And eventually they just had to pitch him. Surprising the way that he has been able to just assimilate. And I know he gave up a homer the other day, but Ryan Fernandez has been very, very good. So I would say on the pitching side, that's a positive that I didn't have expectations coming in. It's not that I thought he'd be bad. I just didn't know what to expect. And I think he's really thrown the ball well. I'll give Libby his flowers too. But again, I thought Liberatore would be good once they moved him to a bullpen role. Just like last year, it doesn't surprise me to see him doing that. Offensively, you could say Mason Wynn. I mean, I think we knew the book on Mason Wynn is go up to a new level, struggle, and then figure it out. And so he's been able to do that. The numbers coming down a little bit in recent days, around a 758 OPS, I think, is where he sits currently. But he's been very good. Again, I expected him to hold his own, but I didn't maybe expect him to have the second highest OPS on the team. That says more perhaps about everybody else than it does what Mason's doing, but he is doing everything you could have hoped to see from him and then a little bit more than that. So I'd say positive on Mason Wynn. Again, I hesitate to use the word surprise, but you guys know what I mean. And unfortunately, I think I just named all the players that are doing well on the Cardinals. Lance Lynn pitching well, I thought he would. Maybe not a 2.7 ERA, but I did. I said 3.5. He could be your number 2, and it's kind of the way it's looking with the way things have gone for Miles Mikolas lately. Now, to the other part of that question, biggest disappointment, probably I would look to Mikolas and Matz. And I know that Mikolas is just coming off of a 6-inning, 3-run outing, and that's good. Hopefully he can sort of keep that energy. Matz, man, I would say him falling back into the patterns that he has for the last 2 years with the Cardinals, particularly what he did in 2023, where started with some momentum, thought he'd be healthy, didn't pitch well, got demoted to the bullpen despite being healthy. It's not that he was injured at that time. He was just pitching bad. Figured it out in the bullpen. Okay, that's the renaissance. Come back in the rotation, fight for that job back. He always wanted to be a starter again. Got his wish, pitched well, injury. Then you say, okay, what's 2024 going to look like? To have him start on a solid note, and then it just seems like every fifth day right now is a problem especially when you get into the fourth, fifth inning. That's a disappointment. Is it a surprising disappointment? I don't know. It depends on your expectations coming in for Steven Matz, but it is disappointing that he hasn't been able to figure it out. And maybe there's an injury reason. We'll find out what the MRI did if that's not already been reported. I haven't been locked in today. We've been putting some tile down in our bathroom, which we just finished doing about 15 minutes ago. And so I have no idea. If there's been some news today, I've missed it. So let me know. Remixed says, what's going on, Brenden? Glad the Cardinals didn't lose today. Yeah, can't lose if you don't play. I wonder if Jim Hayes, the cat, issued a spirit win. By the way, Friday morning, I'll be in for Hot Take Central on 590 The Fan, KFNS. You can go to 590thefan.com, I think, and listen if you're not in the St. Louis area, or tune your radio to 590 AM from 7 to 10 a.m. It'll be me, the cat, and Cole, who is the board op / co-host of the show. And that's the crew for tomorrow. So you'll get a lot of Cardinal baseball talk when it's me and the cat going back and forth, and maybe just making fun of Cole a little bit too, which is always fun. So if you want to hear me and Jim the Cat Hayes talk baseball together, you're going to get your chance tomorrow at 7 a.m. on Friday. I would not miss it. We'll try to throw some stuff on the YouTube channel, anything interesting that may come from that. But if you want to listen live and text in and be part of the show, do that, 7 a.m. Friday morning. And I'm there every Friday morning. It's just sometimes the cat is out of town because the Cardinals are on the road. I just spit out water. That wasn't good. Corn says, let's go. Just happened to look up the YouTube notifications. Yeah, click the bell. If you guys follow my channel or subscribe to my channel, click the bell to where you'll always get notified when we go live and when we post new videos, because otherwise there's no way to know. Yeah, you're subscribed. Click the bell. That's the way to do it. I don't say that enough to people. Corn wants to know how MLB The Show is going. I did get the game. Eric B. hooked me up with an old PlayStation that he said I could just have, and he's a baller for that. I bought the game. I haven't played in 5 years, and I am terrible. It's a little bit of a struggle. And I also, while T-Mobile Internet works for these live streams, doesn't like MLB The Show. You can Google it. T-Mobile Home Internet, MLB The Show. It's like a whole thing. So fingers crossed for now. I was able to reset my modem and get it working. But to play y'all on live games, multiplayer, we're kind of on borrowed time, it seems, because I have the wrong internet. I never have heard of anything like that, but that's what they say. So if it really goes south, I'll have to pick up Spectrum or something for just a couple months until the summer's over. But hopefully it doesn't come to that, because they didn't really work out for the live streams when we did that. So anyway, Cody says Kittredge is doing amazing things. Glad to see the big three in the bullpen. Thoughts on moving Matz to the bullpen, sending Gallegos or the other two that we never pitched down. So I don't know if Gallegos service time wise can be sent down. I'm not 100% either way on that, so I'm not going to speak to it. I wish I knew. I should know. If I were smarter, I would. But I could see, IL stint. I could see a variety of things to sort of hide Giovanni Gallegos from having to pitch in St. Louis right now. I don't know what they'll do. Typically, after a road trip that goes poorly and then you get an off day to sort of think about it, the team does come in on Friday with some new alignments, and maybe that could be one of them. I would say premature to cut Gio just straight up, because I get that he's struggling, and he is tremendously struggling right now. But I would also say there's been a body of work from him that you don't want to necessarily cut bait on that without making sure you've figured out everything that could possibly be addressed with him and his pitching motion and whatever the variety of things that are going wrong could be. You want to try to do your due diligence on that. And so if he could hit the IL, it might not be the worst thing. But all he did say the other day, he's healthy. He feels good physically. So tough question there. By the way, though, the big three in the bullpen, Romero, we're talking JoJo, Kittredge, and Ryan Helsley, they are the triumvirate as far as I am concerned moving forward. Triumvirate. That's what I'm calling them. If you ever hear me say that term, that's what I'm talking about. Ben says this feels like a must-sweep series for the Cardinals, and I could not agree more. Now, will they do it? Is the season over if they don't? No. But look, 1-13, the White Sox have won one game on the road. But granted, Tommy Pham's on their team now. He's going to come into St. Louis and probably wreak some havoc. It was very funny, by the way, the reasoning Tommy Pham gave for signing with the White Sox over the Padres. Evidently, he said, it doesn't really matter about who's a better team, playing time, whatever. San Diego wouldn't match him on the salary adjusted for taxes in California. So he chose the White Sox, which I think I read that. Maybe I'm making that up, but I'm pretty sure I read that. That's pretty funny. So anyway, yeah, it's a big series. What do I predict is going to happen? 2 of 3. I think the Cardinals will win the series, but they'll fail to sweep in the same way that they've been unable to sweep to this point. When they get up in a series, one of those games, they're going to let you down a little bit. That because they just have not shown consistently that ability to run roughshod through a team and go pedal to the metal for 3 games. At some point, it's the offense that lets you down, or the bullpen, or the whatever it is. Something tends to give in those spots when the Cardinals have their chance to stomp on the throat. They just haven't been able to do it. And to become the good team that they believe they can be, that characteristic is going to have to change at some point. Appreciate you guys for watching. Hit subscribe on the video if you want to join the live chat. That's subscribing to the channel allows you to unlock the live chat. 37 likes. I'm sure we can get it to 50. I believe in you. There's more than 37 people in here. All of you guys obviously appreciating my Bucky's hat, even though you probably can't see it because my camera sucks. I'll get a new one. Slim Hot Pocket wants to know my bowling personal best. I've shot 279 a few times, or 2 times. I think 278. Unfortunately, I'm chasing that first 300, and this was not a good season. I didn't prioritize it. Got the young son at home. I know I'm making excuses. I sound like you say the Cardinals sound when it comes to their excuses on why they lose some games, but I did not prioritize bowling this season. I need to do better. I'm taking the summer to kind of reset. We'll get back, maybe get that 300 next year. Seth asks, in prediction, do you think Mo, Ollie, or anyone will be fired if we have another bad season? Yeah, I mean, if they lose, let's say they're on a pace right now to lose 89 games, and the reason we'll say that is because that's true. It's the pace that they're on. I believe, and I've said this before, this is not the first time I will have said this on a podcast, so if I'm repeating myself, I apologize. If they lose 89 games, the pace that they're currently on, Mozeliak, whose contract runs through 2025, will step aside. He will, in the way that David Stearns did with the Brewers a couple years ago before Stearns then took over with the Mets. Do you remember when he said, I'm stepping back from my duties as the president of baseball ops. I'm going to be an advisor or a front office, whatever. Whatever title they want to give him is fine. That will be the transition I predict for Mo if they lose 89 games this year. Because at that point, it's undeniable that what they're doing is not working. You can hide behind all of the, well, we had injuries, well, we had this, well, we underperformed. It doesn't matter. If you lose 89 coming off of a year that you lost 91, that is what it is. The organization is in the direction that it's in. It will not be deniable. The emperor has no clothes. Like, if that is what happens, the clothes are gone from the emperor, right? So I believe Mozeliak will recognize that, and he will step back into more of a, he won't, he'll finish out his contract. Bill DeWitt is not going to fire him. I just don't believe that that relationship is one that you're going to see a firing happen. But I think mutually they can both look at it and go, since Mo is on the way out anyway after 2025, which he has said since February of 2023, even if it's not those words specifically, that's the implication of what path he has been on with sort of that final extension, hoping to guide the Cardinals into the transition to another Pobo or GM or whoever would take over. And then last year happened, and Mo said, okay, we got to buckle down and get this right. They tried. Let's see if it happens. I'm going to give them the year. Like, people are going to, if you ask the question differently, if you asked, do you predict if by June 1st the Cardinals are 10 games under, what happens? I'll say nothing. Because I don't think anything mid-season or pre-deadline anyway is going to truly materialize. Now, you could make the case that if you get into July and they're really bad, that it might make sense to bring in somebody else that can handle the trade deadline. But I think the Cardinals trust Mozeliak to be able to understand, like, hey, if I'm making moves at the deadline, it's for the next guy that's going to run this organization. It's not really for my benefit. I had my chance at legacy, and I had a great one, and we didn't stick the landing. But I think the organization would trust Mo to still make the moves in the better interest of the club, even at that trade deadline, in a world where they're selling again. But I do believe at that point that, again, Mo would be under contract, but I think he would move on, and I think Ollie would still be here, actually. Now, that's how I feel right now. If there were things that happened that would surprise me to say, oh, this is why they were bad, and Ollie really misstepped here, there, and the other, then that could be a different conversation. But I think the reason they gave that extension to Ollie is in part because they didn't want the season to begin on a bad note and everybody be able to say, he's a lame duck anyway, they're probably going to fire him now. The Cardinals didn't want that. The reason is because they believe in Ollie Marmol still. I know that fans are skeptical, but that's the tone of the organization from where I sit. Now, if another bad season happens and a new GM/Pobo comes in, there will be decisions that are made by that individual, but they might even give Ollie 2025 before really because that new person who ever comes in, which I have said in a world where they lose 89 is going to be Chaim Bloom. That would be my prediction. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but that would be my prediction. Chaim Bloom has got some familiarity now with the org because he's already there in an advisory part-time sort of role. So what would happen with Ollie Marmol if Chaim Bloom was in charge? Who would know? But there might be a runway of 2025 to sort of feel through that. And my personal prediction is that if this takes place, payroll will be slashed. And when I did the episode with Josh Jacobs of Dealing the Cards, and we put it on YouTube and Spotify on the b-schaeff daily feed, talking about the possibility of a retool in 2025, what that would look like, I got some comments that said, well, why would they be cheaping out on payroll? They can just sign all these players in free agency. No, they would be, in my opinion, would be taking a step back on payroll to look at internal options, to assess, especially if it's a new person coming in to take over the org, assess what they have, what they don't have, what they need, and then attack free agency ahead of 2026. That's how I would view that. And again, great question, Seth, and ultimately I talked for a while about it. Scroll back. I have a thumbnail on a YouTube video on my page, Chaim Bloom and a thought bubble. That's the video you want if you want to hear my entire opinions, along with Josh Jacobs of Dealing the Cards, on what that would look like, a potential rebuild/retool that I think could honestly be pretty compelling for the Cardinals to still be competitive. But I think, especially in conjunction with Bally Sports, and I got a question about Comcast is dropping Bally Sports. What does that mean? It means that Bally Sports may not be out of the woods on this thing yet. I know people believe that, they're going to survive this bankruptcy thing. I don't know. I'm not at liberty to feel confident in any direction that thing could go with the regional cable stuff. I don't know what that's going to end up looking like, despite the cash infusion, right? Like Amazon's involved, and everybody felt for a while like it's going to all kind of pan out. Maybe it will. I feel like the Cardinals are in a spot where they don't have a say-so in Comcast, or whether it's DirecTV or Dish, whoever might want to drop Bally Sports and make their games inaccessible to their fans. They don't get to press that button yet and give it directly to the fans the way they want to. Bill DeWitt III is working on it. Like, I think if that day came very soon, he'd be ready for it, and the Cardinals would have a direct-to-consumer product that would cost, I'm not saying it would be cheap, but I also think Cardinals fans would pay it because they go, look, as long as I don't have to deal with these cable companies anymore, I don't care. I'm going to trust the Cardinals to deliver a good product. And honestly, it would probably largely be the same experience. It would just be not on cable. It would be an app or whatever it would be streaming. And I even think a lot of the folks that you know and love that do the games, that do a great job, I think would still be involved. I just don't think the Cardinals have contractually, they don't have the ability to have control over this at this point in time until the process plays itself out and such time that the rights are returned to the Cardinals. And my prediction is once they are, Cardinals won't let him go again. Now, for a massive sum of cash, I'm sure they'd be happy to not have to do it all in-house and do it themselves and produce their own games, etc., because having the middleman is easier, right? You don't have to oversee all of that. But they've also been working to understand what they've been missing out on by not overseeing it, and they're learning more about their market and their demographic and the people that want Cardinal baseball. And I think ultimately, from a business side, it's going to help the Cardinals. I think Bill DeWitt III actually does a really nice job of that and is in tune with a lot of those elements. But this is my point, is that I think with all that going on in the background, if you have 2 losing seasons in a row, and 91 losses is not just a losing season, it's a real losing season. If you have another one kind of like it this year, I could see them stepping back from about the $185 million in payroll that they're at now to more like $100 to $110 million. And you might think, wow, that's a big number. It is, but when you take Arenado and Goldie, and that's gone because Goldie's on the final year of his deal, they didn't give him an extension partially for that reason. Same reason that they signed a bunch of one-year deal pitchers instead of the multi-year contracts for Gibson and Lynn. They signed those guys to one-year deals because it's kind of an escape hatch if this year goes wrong. Now, those 2 deals are looking good so far, and I think at this point you'd consider picking up the option on both of them if they continue performing the way that they have. And Sonny Gray was the one multi-year deal that they gave, and that one obviously went really well, or I should say is going well, and you expect that it's a good contract with the way things have proceeded to this point. But like those are part of the reasons that the Cardinals made the moves they made, and if they do go into rebuild, then you can trade off Lynn Gibson at the deadline if they have value, continue to retool on the prospect side like they did last July, and find their home for Arenado where even if he's not performing well, you can probably send him away. You're not getting great prospects if he's not hitting well, but you can at least get rid of a bulk of the money. And in a world where they're rebuilding, retooling, that could be the motivation. I'm not saying that's something people should be fond of, but I could see it happen. Give me one moment. I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll be right back. Just a drink of water. I lied. It was a drink of water and a big sneeze. Okay. We're back in the driver's seat. But anyway, Seth, long answer to your question. Check out that podcast with Josh where I had the Heim Bloom photo as the main picture. And that could answer more of your question. Biz motivation, they better not bring up Andre Pallante to be a starter if Matz goes down. I wouldn't rule it out because I think Pallante can pitch to some contact. Is it going to be ideal? I don't know. It depends. Look, he had a good little run as a starter when he first came through. I don't think it's impossible necessarily that they would go for that. He's got to throw strikes, though. I think in his last start, Pallante did not end up really throwing strikes. Had 4 walks. However, for Pallante, like, I could see them just saying, look, give us 5 1/3 and 3 runs and just kind of grit through it. Throw some strikes, get some double plays. I'm not saying that would be impossible. I'm not saying it would be a super awesome winning formula, but I think Pallante has some grit to him. He's a gamer. I could also see in that world where I talked about a retool, I could see him being your number 5 starter next year for sure. Like, in a world where they're not spending money on anything, yeah, Pallante, come on up and throw 150 innings, and we'll just see what happens. They could definitely do that. And he would be up for the task. I know people wouldn't be excited about it, but it would be kind of interesting to see, at least in my opinion. Greg asks if they get swept by the White Sox, is the season officially over? Well, no, but you would be very concerned. You'd be very, very concerned if that happened. The volume is low. You guys can't hear me very good. Okay. I'll pump it up a little bit. Is it better? I'm going to pump it up. Let me know if it ends up getting better, Ace, after what I just said. I do understand on the live streams the volume might be a tad low, but that's because the return in my ear is so loud. I try to Let me know, though. If it's rough, then I would say turn it up on your side. But if you can't, I apologize. But tell me for real, at b-schaefer12, anytime you have suggestions about the volume and different things, my video quality and stuff, I know it's not high. What you get from me is volume in terms of a lot of podcasts. I'm doing it every day. I will get better as I do them more. It's inevitable. But I need to hear from you guys when I'm doing something stupid so you can tell me. And I may not be able to fix it, but I can at least try. Corn says the offense is so bad we're begging for DC to come back and just be league average. Yeah, I mean, with Victor Scott and then Michael Ciani being whatever they've been, 35 OPS plus or whatever it's been, to get Carlson up at a 92 OPS plus would be incredible. Bat him ninth or wherever you hit him and roll at almost league average. And then imagine a world in which he's good. That could be a huge difference. Seth asks, or he says, we are the lowest home run hitting team. With Goldie regressing, could you maybe see Alonso signing in the offseason? No, I don't think so. I think if Goldie was leaving, it's largely because the Cardinals season didn't go very well, and they don't want to re-sign him because they're also not going to bring back Arenado. Like, they'll trade him, in my opinion, if they have a bad year. They'll get him somewhere that because he's, he doesn't need to be a part of a retool or a rebuild at this point. And I think he would, politely as one could, ask for maybe a different home at that point if he saw Goldie and the whole rotation leaving. Like Lynn, Gibson, and not being replaced. I think you'd still have Contreras. You'd still have Sonny Gray, pending those guys demanding trades. But, yes, I definitely man, is the volume really that low? Some people are still talking about it. Let me scroll down to the bottom. Okay, Ace said the volume was better, so I'm going to take his word for it. Now I have to find back where I was, where the questions were. Yeah, always let me know, guys, if I'm doing stupid stuff. Mike, I'm sorry about that, too, on the volume. What it is I put it where I put it for my my podcast, but on my podcast, what I end up doing is raising the volume. But I do it so I don't pop off on anybody's hearing and go, whoa, what the heck is going on there? So that's the reason I kind of had it too low. But I got to remember, for live streams, I can pump it up a little bit because I will not have the ability to edit it. I won't be able to do that on the fly. For you guys, anyway, on the live. Alonso is not boring enough to be a Cardinal. It would be very funny with all the run-ins that Alonso's had with the Cardinals to then have him sign here. But no, my thought is that they won't re-sign, they won't add in free agency hardly at all. Maybe some pitching just to make sure they have enough innings covered. But if they lose 90 games, they are going on the cheap next year. That is my prediction. And I think it happens under Chaim Bloom, but that's, I don't know what the Vegas odds on that would be. It's not, a lot of stuff would have to happen. A lot of things would have to change for that to be the deal, but I'm not going to say that's impossible. But no, I don't think they'd be splurging on an Alonso. And look, Cardinals fans might go, well, we're not showing up to the stadium. Okay, we'll see. That might be a bet that Bill DeWitt's willing to make because he could look and say, we still have a lot of young, exciting players. Now, those young, exciting players will have to play in a young, exciting way in order to catch and maintain the attention from Cardinals fans. But I don't know. I think I could see on paper a lineup being kind of decent even without some of the guys. Like, look, right now the Cardinals have Arenado and Goldie. Their lineup is bad. If those guys don't improve, moving them out of the lineup is not really going to make the lineup any worse. Now, granted, I think that they will improve, but to what extent is probably a fair question. Will they try to stretch out Thompson instead because he's got MLB experience? Joey wants to know. They're doing that, right? Thompson's in AAA in the rotation as far as I can remember. Isn't he down there in AAA? Remix doesn't want Sem to come up just yet. Needs to marinate in AAA. No need to rush him, even more than they already have. Yeah, I would let him throw a few more times in AAA. Korn wants to see Sem up. I and Ben would say leave him down. I could see the fan base being pretty 50-50 split on Robertson just yet. Biz wants to see DC and Sem both come up if Matz goes down, not Palante or Thompson. You agree unless Thompson is throwing 97. Yeah, I would wait on Thompson. And the report that came out from, I think, earlier on this road trip, it might have been when they were still in New York. And welcome into the new viewers. Hit the subscribe button and then pop your question into the live chat once you subscribed. So it's the way to join. With Thompson, he lost some weight on purpose in the offseason, training differently, lose some weight, be in better shape, but it's apparently cost him on his fastball, and his mechanics are a little bit out of sync because he's just, I guess you're operating at a different weight. It feels different coming through. I've seen people say they play golf, they lose a bunch of weight, and then their golf game is affected by it because the mechanics of it are just different. They're used to maybe having a belly in the way or I don't mean to be, this isn't me being silly. I think that there's maybe an aspect to that. Now, Zach Thompson wasn't obese. I mean, he was in pretty good shape, I thought, but evidently lost some weight and then maybe lost some fastball velo with it and trying to sync up the mechanics, which is why I guess that's why Ollie Marmol had said weeks ago that it's not going to be a quick fix for him to just fix his mechanics. It made no sense at the time. Lost weight, and evidently that's the reason. So there you go, which is why, again, I'd leave him in Memphis for a little bit to try and figure that out until he's comfortable with what those mechanics look like now. Also, you could be on the Memphis barbecue diet, and that can maybe put the weight back on you, and everything's fixed. Who knows? Ben says it seems there's maybe no better option than Sem. Yeah, he is the best option, but that's the thing. Like, if you're urgent about it and you want to really try to take a crack at fixing this thing, you would go for broke. But is Sem going to be that, or are you just going to stunt his development when he's really starting to hit his stride at AAA? Could Palante be that answer? I know people aren't thrilled about it. If they call up Palante, I'll be excited to see what a Palante start would look like. Granted, my happiness is not tied to whether or not the Cardinals win on a given day, like Cardinals fans' happiness sometimes is, which I get. I used to be in that boat, and I just have a different perspective now. But knowing Palante, I just want to see what that would look like. Get him back in a starter role, and is it something that he would be able to do again? Joey wants to see Liberatore extended run in the rotation. No, I think you leave him in the bullpen. That's the one thing I do have an opinion on, and that's how I felt February 1st, and I still feel that way. He looked good in relief at the end of last year. He looks good in relief now. If it ain't broke, sort of thing. Don't fix it. That's my opinion. Corn says, was talking to a casual baseball fan the other day, and he said it's dumb to pay attention until July, and I never thought about it like that. Yeah, don't do it that way, because I don't really have much of a career going if nobody cares to read or talk about baseball in April and May. Just saying. But he also said it's hard not to with the way that last year sucked. Yeah, I get it. But your mental health is going to be just fine as long as you keep joining me, listening to the content, reading the content. See, it's all about the content, baby. Realistic timeline for Walker's return. Brandon wants to know. I think it'll be a few weeks. I mean, if he doesn't turn around performance-wise, you probably don't rush him back up. And right now the performance is struggling still with Memphis, but he hasn't played a ton of games yet. They gave him some time when he first got to Memphis to kind of get integrated again, and he wasn't in the lineup right away. If he has that week like he did last year when he was with Memphis for a bit where he just goes off, you call him up in that week and say, all right, let's let this happen. But I think you almost let him dictate with his play how he's feeling in his swing to be able to get him back. And the Cardinals should hope it's soon, but I don't think they want to force it and then be back right in the same boat where they were, where he's up, but he's not performing, and then you're kind of not sure if you want to play him every day. Mike thinks Lance Lynn is overachieving. He's been somewhat of a surprise. Still expecting him to screw it up, but I'll take what I... Look, I think Lance Lynn is largely doing what I thought he would do. The ERA is a little better, but I thought he would probably pitch pretty well. And I also said, look, I know they want him to eat innings. His sort of way of things is not always to eat innings. And I would say that's a mild criticism because unless his stuff is sharp, he does waste a lot of pitches. He'll walk guys, and he knows how to strike guys out so he can get out of it when he puts runners on base. And the pitching can still be very effective. But, I mean, if you look, I'll just give you the rundown. He's gone 4 innings, 4 2/3, 5, 7, 5, 5. He's got one game where he's recorded an out in the 6th out of 6 starts. Now, the first couple, he had 2 of the first 3 were rain-induced and had the rain delay, so he didn't come back in L.A. And then there was another rain game. I want to say that was the one against Philly. In Philly. Might have been rain. But whatever the case, I mean, Lance Lynn has not really been an innings eater, but he's been effective, so the Cardinals will take that. Tim says, Jolly and Foolish Bailey talked about Mason Wynn in a video recently about him bringing a breakout candidate. Only downside is no barrels this year, but a guy with speed can get away with maybe not always barreling the ball up. And I think he does hit it hard, just not in the barrel-y way, because that's launch angle as well. And that's fine, actually, because he doesn't need to be a home run hitter. He can hit hard ground balls, and that's okay. You don't want Jordan Walker doing that. He doesn't have the speed element that Mason does. But Mason Wynn hitting lower line drives that aren't in the barrel velocity or the barrel angle for launch and hitting ground balls is okay because that can be an effective part of his game. Same thing with Victor Scott. Like, you want to see him hit ground balls. Stop hitting the ball in the air because you're not able to take advantage of your speed if you don't put it on the ground. Different strokes for different folks, and folks that have speed, you want them to be able to use it. Brandon said, don't lose hope. He's 22. Could argue he needed more time in the system to learn how to work himself out of slumps. If you're talking about Jordan Walker, he's not. He's 21. I think he turns 22 in a couple weeks, but I don't even think he's done it yet. Justin, does anyone know why the minor league baseball is not playing an all-star game? I sure don't, but if anybody does, you can answer it. The Cat Spirit win is a big deal from Corn. That's a great point. Very good point. Corn says the bell doesn't work for him. YouTube, get on it. Jeff says, good evening. I like that you have the drink emoji. Excuse me. I would hope that everybody's drinking out there. Maybe some people are. I got to clear my throat. Hold on. Goodness. The thing about a live broadcast like this is you don't get to stop talking at any point when you're dealing with allergies to clear your throat. April has been brutal to me, and May is off to not a better start. On the big show on KTGR, which is the radio show I do in Columbia, mid-Missouri, we did our month's draft the other day. And I'm kind of mad because I think we totally forgot on the show today to say who won the month's draft. I hope it was me. I ended up with September, October, June, and February. And I can at least I don't like February. I'm a big, the weather's got to be nice guy for me to feel good about things. But I would say at least of February, yeah, I did win the month's draft. I have to bring that up tomorrow to the guys. February at least has spring training, right? So I can say, well, I'm in Jupiter half the month. It's a great month to me. And Corn is out of Wi-Fi, for those who are wondering. Ace wants to know, is there anybody that I would like to see called up? Well, Dylan, first of all, I think he's ready. If he's healthy, he's good. And as far as anybody else, not really. Not really necessarily. Look, I want to see more from Robertson. I want to see him, when he gets called up, I want to see him stick and be in the rotation for $750K. And the Cardinals can say, look, we developed a starter who's not a six starter. He's a guy that we're going to have in our rotation for the next 6 years. And he's going to go through ARB, and he's going to be here for 6 years because he's a number 3 in our rotation, and he's just a good quality pitcher. Can Sem Robertson turn into that, or can somebody else in this system turn into that? It would make a world of difference for the Cardinals. It really would. As far as anybody else to call up right now, I don't know if I necessarily have, off the top of my head, anyone obvious. Sajasi, I want to see it eventually, but I think right now there's not an obvious role for him. And I don't offhand know his numbers in Memphis either. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at, is just let's see Robertson do it for another month, ideally. Now, granted, if they call him up tomorrow for Matz, I'm not going to argue with it because I could understand what they're aiming for with that. But I don't think I am trying to force the issue on anybody else to call him up. Sorry, folks. I'll answer Dylan's question here. A lot of people are talking about how the Cardinals should trade Arenado after this season if things don't improve. But do you think he would even approve a trade? He seems to like it here. My thought is if you're trading Goldie at the deadline because the team's out of it, Arenado would be like, okay, what am I, 32, 33? I'm a competitive guy. I want to win World Series. Yeah, he would approve a trade because the Cardinals would basically go, okay, we know the Dodgers are going to, okay, what's the trade here? And they would get it done. I think it would almost be a favor to Arenado if the team is going to go in with a lower payroll next year, that would happen. But how much of that can you actually do? And again, this is hypothetical. People hear me talk about this and say, oh, you're so negative on the Cardinals. Why would you give up on the season? No. I'm just answering questions. I would say that the Cardinals are going to be fine. They're going to be around 500. Do they make the right moves at the deadline? If so, I think they end up making the playoffs. It could very well still happen. I can understand why you'd be skeptical of that. But I'm absolutely, my opinion, I think they could still pull it off. Let's kind of wait and see. But if you're not there, if you're frustrated, I'm not discounting you either. I think there's a lot of reasons to be very skeptical of what we've seen so far and whether this offense can live up to the billing that we had for it preseason, which was the billing that would have been necessary to get this team into the playoffs, in my opinion. But since we're talking about it, I think Arenado would approve a trade to the right destination. I think the Cardinals would do it almost as a favor. But if you're Sonny Gray or Wilson Contreras, you're going, now, wait a minute. Everybody's going, what's my incentive to be on board with whatever's going to happen here in 2025? And the answer to that would be, hopefully, communication from whoever the POBO is at that point in time that, hey, this is going to be a moment where we're going to guide some kids that are going to play in 2025, and we're going to find out, and we're going to take your input on kind of what we need to be doing here and who we need to be bringing along and considering for the long haul of this. And then going into 2026, big free agent frenzy to fill the holes that they find out in 2025 they have. And both Wilson and Sonny will still be under contract for 2026. So maybe you can sell it that way to those two guys if you went into a rebuild. It would really be more of a retool. Just 1 year, and then you get back to $200 million by 2026. That, to me, would be an acceptable way to do it, too, because you don't want to continue to be caught in the middle, and if you're losing 90 games 2 years in a row, that's not the middle. You're even below the middle, so there's no reason to continue, trying to swim upstream when maybe you could take a different approach. Adam says they've got to get me on the out of the park train. I can't do OOTP. I can't do it. I've tried in the past. I don't know what it is, but I have not been able to get into it. I bought it 1 year, and I just could not. I don't know why, because when I was a kid, all I did was on the MLB. It was like MLB 2K at the time. I would just simulate seasons. I wouldn't even play the games. Out of the park should be exactly for me. And something about the interface, maybe. I'm not smart enough. It might be that I'm not smart enough, Adam. That 100% could be it. But I just never got too much into out of the park. Corn wants to know about Gio's contract situation. I believe he's got a club option for next year, and they can decline it if they'll have to buy him out for like $1 million or whatever, but they'll probably decline the option. And if they cut in this year at some point, they would still have to pay him that money, but it's just the buyout money, essentially. Kevin says the only surprise for me has been Wynn's offensive progress so far. Expected all the major pitchers to do well that they signed. Surprised with the offense looking helpless so far too often. Yeah, I agree. I didn't think they'd be the 28th in runs scored in MLB. I thought, top 10 was very attainable, I thought. But I kept saying I think they need to actually be top 6 or 8 to be a legit NL Central contender. And they're not going to be a top 6 or 8 offense. I feel comfortable saying that at this point. They won't get there. The season-long cumulative numbers will not be top 6. And probably there's almost no way for them to be top 8. I'm going to say they won't be top 8. Could they be top 10? I guess theoretically. Do I think they will? No. Do I think they'll be top 12? No. Top 14? I'll give them top 14. I think they can get to that. But it's going to take being top 10 for a while to overcome the sludge, the toxic waste that has been their season to this point. 55 likes. I can't drive 55. Get up to 60 if we could on the likes. Stephen Matz, a top 10 Cardinal ever? I'd have to say yes, crazy fan. He is. Greg, if the Dodgers want Nolan, he will approve it. There you go. Yep. I know that was gross, but I'm going through allergies. Corn says that's awesome of the Tommy Pham story. Yeah, that's very much a Pham move, guys. He is the man, knows his finances. All right, that's all I'm going to say. Lucan Baker is just in AAA. He's not in a foreign league. He's in AAA. Kenneth, what's going on? Don't think Gio should be cut, but I do think he should voluntarily let himself go to AAA like Jose Abreu of the Astros so he can figure stuff out in games that do not matter. Actually, I think Abreu went all the way down to low A. And yeah, he would have had to have agreed to it because of service time. Jose Abreu would not have had to do what he did. But he said, look, I probably best for the team that I get out of here and figure some stuff out. So that's what they did. Cardinal Nation, what's up? There's not much for the dugout to get excited about, but body language-wise, the team looks beat from the first pitch. I don't know. I thought there was a lot of that last year. I don't know if it's quite been that bad this year, but I do agree they don't have, enough kind of rah-rah, enough, you know what I mean? They are a little bland in terms of, they do, the Newt Bars of the world will get after it, but when those guys are hitting 190, it's kind of hard to be the rah-rah guy, And their leaders are Arenado and Goldie. When they're hitting, it's great because the team scores runs, but are they even very rah-rah? No. Arenado, you can see it sometimes. Goldie is very much not. He's never going to, turn to the dugout and, hype guys up like a Newt Bar would, which is not to say that's bad. It's just not his personality. But Nolan Gorman, not as much. Granted, it was really cool when he spiked the bat on the walk-off. He needed something like that, but he's been kind of quiet since. And quiet in his demeanor as well, not just at the plate, but he's just a more quiet guy. Yeah, they don't have a ton. It's not that they don't have personality, but they don't have those guys that are, and I don't even want to use the word boastful because that almost takes on a negative connotation, and I don't mean it negative. I think this team could stand to be a little more brash. I want them to be a little more brash. I don't think that's crazy to But like you mentioned, it's hard to be brash when you're not winning, when you're struggling. It can feed into itself, right? Mike didn't mind the tax situation in California. He left California and noticed an immediate difference in the paycheck. Yep, I hear it's wild out there. Jeff K has 12,300 games in bowling. Congrats to that. Kenneth says, shout out to Hazel Baker. I assume, well, Hazel Baker's not even in here. She's not even back there. Might have just revealed something to some people. Maybe she was in here earlier. I don't know. Remixed, how much longer does the offense have to perform this way before we just say that this offense is bad and not a slump? Yep, I agree. I understand the question. Let's say a month. Can I get till June 1st from y'all before we say, hey, look, there's fundamentally some issues here? And maybe they won't give it till June 1st. What does Mike Claiborne always say? Flag Day, that's like June 15th or so, June 14th. But I think another month I would like to give them. They may not have that luxury. If the pitching starts to struggle, they may not have the luxury to give it that long. But what change do you make? Hitting coach, I hear all about how, well, what's firing the hitting coach going to do? The hitting coach is really well liked. Maybe they should hire a guy that they hate to be the hitting coach. If they're bad in May and it's a 2-month sample size of an offense ranked at the bottom 5 and everything, I hope they hire the biggest jerk alive to be the hitting coach, because maybe they'll try to do good out of spite. Are they too comfortable? Like, I'm being a little facetious right now, but I feel like I would be crazy to just ignore how bad the hitting has been and not think that hitting coach could be something that you look at. Granted, people didn't like Jeff Albert when he was here. I think the tendency to point to the hitting coach when things are going wrong offensively is folks are a little too quick to do it. That being said, this should not be an offense that ranks in the bottom 5 of baseball. And Ollie Marmol has faith in him, but at a certain point, you just are what you are. Baseball is a fair game. That's what Paul Goldschmidt said last year when the team was struggling after a couple of months. He said at the end of 6 months and 162 games, you're going to know. The numbers will tell you what kind of team you were that year. So there is that element of this where the Cardinals are just going to have to do it, or they aren't who they're claiming to be, right? The proof will be in the pudding, as they say. So, Remix, I think you give him more time, but understand that the pressure is on. May's a big month. You cannot have that offensive month again in May, the one you just had. It will not work. And you'll be more than 3 games below 500 if you do. I promise you that. Because I believe they've had, 19 or 20 games, somewhere in that range where they scored 3 or fewer. It's not sustainable. It's not a tenable situation. Corn is most disappointed by Gorman. Actually, Corn, when that question was asked earlier and I mentioned who my disappointments were, that would have been the biggest one. I really kind of brushed through the disappointment part. Gorman would be a big one. Walker would be a big one, because I did think those two guys could step forward, and they've both, unfortunately, stepped back to this point. I like this question from Mighty Mike, but just let me answer it and just trust that my belief is my belief. Do you think Yachty will ever show for the team? No. Next question. I don't. Not in 2024. Could he show if he's ever offered the manager job? Yeah, he might show then. I just don't think it's a priority for him at this point. And should he have agreed to be an advisor if it wasn't a priority to come? Maybe not. But it's not a big deal, because a lot of those types of advisors, there's a bunch of them, and sometimes they don't do anything. Like Joe McEwing, I think technically gets an advisor role after he was no longer the bench coach, right? They signed him to a 2-year contract to be the bench coach. They only got him because Holiday didn't want the job, and that was kind of last minute. So I think technically Joe McEwing is an advisor this year. I've not seen him. I don't know if he's around, if he's just up in the box somewhere. I have no idea. But my point is, Yachty is one of those roles, and a lot of time those roles on paper, you don't have to be there. It's just kind of a nice title to give a guy, but he wasn't under a contract with the team. So the fact that they went out of their way to do that, he was supposed to show up at spring training and didn't. Make of that what you will, but it was not a priority for him to have been there. And you can understand it. I would say, in the same way that Holiday probably shouldn't have taken the hitting coach job when he did, Yachty, recently retired, might just enjoy being retired for a little bit. Shoot, he did this whole thing for 2 decades. Take some time off. You made enough money. Chill. I think that may have set in for Yachty a little bit, which, if so, I can't really judge it. It's what I would do if I had that kind of money. I'm just saying. Kevin wants to know what Girsch actually does. Not being a jerk, I really have never known. We never hear from him. I just always assumed that he was there to be a fall guy for Mo. Actually, I think I can answer this. First of all, the way this works, a front office, the relationships part of it, I think, ends up getting lost on people a little bit. When you talk about making trades, how does a trade come together? Because if you play MLB The Show, the way you make a trade in franchise mode is clicking a button and scrolling through and going, I want to trade with the Guardians today. And they're this player that I want is an 87 overall. I need to give them a 90 overall or an 85 overall plus a 72 overall and see if the game accepts a trade. That's how it happens in video game world. And I'm convinced that a lot of baseball fans think that's how it happens in real life, but it's very, very different than that. And that's where a guy like Girsch can come in. He might have great relationships with execs from Cleveland, and he knows this guy from the Tigers, and he's actually, used to play pickleball with the guy from Detroit, whatever it is. Relationships. So he's part of a front office where if they're dealing with, and I'm going to use a hypothetical because I don't know the answer to which teams he's in with and which ones is maybe Mo and which ones is maybe Randy Flores might be. I don't really know the details on that. Excuse me. But let's just say, for example, that Girsch really has a guy with the Rays front office that he communicates with and negotiates with, and maybe that's his lane. Right. And there are a lot of just other things that can happen. But the first thing I think about is trades. But he brings ideas to the table. They're a collaborative front office. They're going to have ideas that aren't just Mo's. Mo's going to have the final say so. But there's a lot of work being done that tangibly we may not see out front. But that's stuff that Mike Girsch is involved in. The other part that he was supposed to be involved in, it never really happened, and I'll explain why, was I think he was supposed to be more of a conduit to the media and to the public. I think the plan initially was for Mike Girsch. Remember, Mo was doing a ton of work for this organization, and then he was given the title of president of baseball ops to reflect the work that he was already doing. It was a promotion, but really it was, hey, you're the guy for this organization. You deserve a title and probably a monetary compensation boost that reflects that. Now, what does that mean? There's now an opening for the GM. The general manager is now going to be Mike Girsch. Instead of him being an assistant to the GM, or I should say, that's an office thing. An assistant GM, he's now the GM, but there's somebody over top of him. Mo, still Mike Girsch's boss. But what was described at the beginning by Mo, and this was, whatever it was, 2018, 2019, that Girsch would maybe be doing more of the media sessions, some of the things that he could take off of Mo's plate so Mo could focus on other things. Now, Girsch was a little bit green when he first started doing some of those, and so maybe the team decided, well, let's just kind of wait on that and see, maybe not expose him to where, because everybody in the organization's got to be on the same page. If I'm Mo, do I have the trust to delegate the media scrum to somebody else? Because what if somebody else says something that, well, that's not really the way we wanted to. You got to make sure the messaging is on point and everybody's on the same page. And if it's not going to be that way, it might as well just be Mo that says it, because he can take all the fall for it, and there could be, at least he's the one that's the final say so, and there's not, some discord there. I'm not suggesting that was largely what it was with Girsch, though. I think the reason that he didn't end up doing a lot of the media stuff as much as it seemed like he was supposed to when they first hired him or promoted him to that GM role, was because COVID happened, frankly. And the Cardinals specifically had a big old heck of a time with COVID, where they were in the hotel, the whole thing, right? They were shut down. They're the team in MLB that had it worse than anybody else was the St. Louis Cardinals. They were the guinea pig of here's what happens when COVID runs through your team. Not good. I'll explain more after I take a sip of water. Okay. Goodness. And I'm sorry, I keep turning the volume down. I didn't need to do that. So COVID happened, and I feel like that's why Mike Girsch maybe wasn't as front and center, because they needed like one consistent voice to sort of be the guide and explainer to the public, the conduit to the public on everything that was going on with COVID. That ends. Okay, you can kind of breathe a little bit. We're coming out of that. 2023, February happens, and Mo says, look, we're going to start to delegate more responsibilities from the front office as I move toward the twilight with the last 3 years of the contract, 23, 24, and 25. That was the plan for Mo. Then what happens? 2023 happens. So again, you kind of have to be front and center if you're Mo, because your face is on this thing. If the Cardinals win, a wild card last year, and they maybe win a playoff series, they win a wild card series, but they lose in the LDS, I think there would have been more of a transition where it's like, okay, things are in good hands. We're gonna have so and so promoted to do more of this stuff, and I'm going to begin to sort of transition. I thought that was going to happen, but then when it went so badly instead last year, now Mo is sort of legacy on the line, having to salvage it at the end. He's got to be very hands-on again in 2024. So I think that's sort of the question as to what Girsch does is a lot. It's stuff that we don't maybe always notice, but he's responsible for the trades. He'll do trade negotiations. There are trades that Mike Girsch has made. John Mozeliak said, oh, that sounds like a good trade. I rubber stamp it, but Girsch is doing the legwork on him. So there are things that happen that we may not always realize, but Girsch is the point person on a lot of different things that they do. Korn says if we could have Gorman Walker replace Goldie Arenado as the two best hitters in the lineup, that would be huge. Yeah, problem is one of them's in Memphis right now, and the other one's OPSing 600. So that's the trouble. Burleson is underrated. Yeah, he's people are coming around on Burleson a little bit, and his numbers are, I mean, relative to a lot of guys on the team, they're actually pretty good. 706 OPS, I think. Spencer says Bally Sports is going under. The Cardinals are making their own streaming service. Trust me, Brenden, they will get paid this year. The Cardinals, yeah, Bally's paying them this year. All payments are happening this year. They are working in case they need to make their own streaming service. The Cardinals are, but maybe Amazon money comes in and they keep getting paid by Bally, and the contract's still good, and they just keep moving on with life. That's also a possible outcome of this thing. But wouldn't that make sense for them to want to kind of, if they did have a bad season anyway this year, maybe they kind of find out in 2025 by lowering the payroll, saving up a little bit of cash, seeing how that situation plays out. I could see that. It won't happen if they're good this year. They'll continue to invest if they're good, but if they're not, they might decide that's the time to take a step back. Mike thinks eventually the offense will step up and the pitching will falter. Doesn't expect the team to fire on all cylinders. Yeah, that would be unfortunate if the offense finds it right as the pitching should happen to lose it. That would be tough. What if Carlson comes back and is the guy we always wanted him to be? Well, Korn, you'll be throwing a parade because that would be really, really cool. I root for DC, man. I want to see him do well. Korn says I had a lot of his rookie cards that he bought. Yeah, I might have a couple too. I think I do now that I recall it. Let's see here. YouTube jumped me on the old comment section. Man, there's a lot of comments here. You guys have been going ham. 60 likes. We can get it to Mark McGuire. 70 though. Surely we can get it to 70. And don't call me Shirley. The volume is good. Glad. I'm so far behind on the comments, I'm still only getting to the volume comment. Bryn says Carlson could be the spark that the team needs if he could get out of his head, consistent starting time, and something else. I keep pressing the wrong button, dadgummit. And if he shows out for the time he is starting, he could be the guy the Cardinals have waited for. Now, Bryn, they didn't say he was off limits for Soto. I'm going to touch on this briefly. The Cardinals did not want to trade Carlson and everybody else that it would have required to get Juan Soto back in 2020. Back in 2022. The report, I believe it was Morosi, and I even sent that out as an article for KMOV because Morosi, was considered credible at the time and said the Cardinals wouldn't deal Soto, and they would not deal Carlson for Soto, and that was it. The Cardinals would not include Carlson, I think is true, in addition to what it would have taken, which is Jordan Walker, Mason Wynn, Tank Hens. It would have taken a whole bundle at the time, and the Cardinals didn't want to do all of it. Would they have gone Soto for Carlson straight up? Yeah, they would have done that deal, but that wasn't a deal that was offered to them. And you look at what Soto was ultimately dealt for, and included pitching prospects that the Cardinals simply didn't have. So I would argue that the Cardinals just didn't have the type of players, just like it's on MLB The Show. You don't just type in the overall ratings and then match it up and make a trade. That organization wanted certain pitchers, certain things that the Cardinals maybe did not have to offer. I believe Mackenzie Gore was dealt to the Nationals in that trade. The Cardinals did not have a guy on Mackenzie Gore's level or with the skill set of Mackenzie Gore that was projectable at the time. And really since then, we haven't necessarily gotten to see a Cardinal pitching prospect really ascend in that way. So I know I said I would just briefly touch on it, but that's the deal with that. Somehow we've gone an hour. It always happens this way. Josh said depressing discussion to come into, talking about, I got to stop with the hypotheticals because people get sad about that. I'm going to just try to read some of the comments from people that I have not read yet. For those who have commented, I appreciate you big time. Unless you haven't liked the stream, in which case I hate you. That's just the truth. Heart of the Order says, that's cool. His defense is the value there, but Gorman, Goldie, Arenado need to come around. DC or Edman is not the fix. Yeah, ultimately, the dudes that are dudes need to be dudes. It's pretty simple, or this offense won't be there. Joshua Jacobs, is that Joshua Jacobs of Dealing the Cards pod? What a celeb in the chat here. He said, just hopped on the stream, but seems like there's a lot of DC chatter already. Interested to see if he can help spark things. Yeah, me too. I would get him up Friday if he's like healthy and what's the word? Not durability, but just conditioning. If his conditioning is good to go, let it happen. Felix, hello there. Young, exciting players. Selling tickets is a scary idea given how disastrous they've been at developing their young players. Haven't had much excitement from there in years. Bad track record. Yeah, when I said young, exciting players, I meant like in an ideal world where the bottom isn't dropping down on everybody, you could have like Ivan Herrera catch, Wilson at first, second base could be Donovan, third could be Gorman. Again, if you were selling off Arenado goalie. And you could also play some Burleson at first. That would work if you want to keep Wilson behind the plate if you're not sure about Herrera catching. Mason at short. I said Donovan at second. So left field, Newt Barr. Center field, ideally Victor Scott. Right field, Jordan Walker. Like, that'd be a lineup that has a lot of names of people you like. Maybe Carlson in center if Victor's not ready. Whatever. Burleson at DH or Ivan Herrera at DH. Like, there's a lot to be intrigued by on paper about that lineup. Does it win many games? You know, maybe not without pitching either. But anyway. Justin, who do you think will be sent down when Carlson becomes active? So let's do the Brandon Crawford conversation now. I don't think it's going to happen. But if you look at that game in the second game of the doubleheader, where we know they've been trying to be careful about Mason Wynn because of the back, and when they're playing 27 innings in 24 hours, I just figured Mason Wynn would sit one of those 3 games, right? Because they had the doubleheader, and then the next game was at noon on the Wednesday. So that's 27 innings in 24 hours, man, basically. Game 2, Crawford starts instead of Wynn. Okay, not too surprising. Jose Fermin is on this team, but also folks don't necessarily, they're not sure about him defensively at short. But I'm not sure about anything with Brandon Crawford right now defensively at short, or offensively for that matter. And when he goes and strikes out twice, straining 4 runners on base, and then that play, I think it was in the 5th inning, it was a ground ball. It was when Kyle Leahy was in there. And people say, well, why is Leahy coming back out for the 5th? First of all, the bullpen is limited, so they're just trying to get what they can and get through this game. I know they took a lead on the Burleson homer, but you have to still recognize what you do or don't have in that bullpen. And you have to play a game at noon the next day. So, gosh darn it, Leahy only got him 2 outs. Let's see if he can throw a little bit more than that. I can understand, even if it wasn't ideal, and even if Ollie might do it differently if he had it to do over again, I can understand why it happened. Also, Leahy didn't pitch terribly. He got screwed by Brandon Crawford just making a non-play on a ground ball to short. It was a 68-mile-per-hour exit velo off the bat. So I understand it wasn't hit very hard, but he's just kind of a little bit of a step late to get to it, and a step late on the throw, and he doesn't have Mason Wynn's arm because nobody does. And it was just a combination of those factors where you just go, that sucks if you're the pitcher. And then Burleson tried to charge in on the ball in left field that ended up being a double. Leahy kind of got burned on that stuff, but it's the Crawford thing that I would talk about. Ollie took him out of the game. He did sub Mason Wynn in, knowing that they don't want to do that. Like, they didn't start that game thinking Mason Wynn's going to play in this game. It became untenable with the way that Crawford was performing. Now, is that the view of the front office? Was it simply the view of Ollie on that day? Would Ollie deny it if I asked him about it that way? Maybe all of those things are up for some terms of debate. But I don't think Mason Wynn, again, I respect the hell out of Ollie. If he says, no, it was this other thing, I would still in the back of my mind kind of go, I saw Brandon Crawford playing in that game and it didn't really look right. Mason Wynn is not supposed to play in that game. He's supposed to have that off. That by design, that would be what they would have wanted. And it didn't happen. So I wonder what the Crawford conversation looks like. I think it's probably too early probably to do it, only because the Cardinals tend to do something too late rather than too early, especially when it comes to a veteran player. But it doesn't look great right now. I'll be curious to see what the role is, especially when you do have Fermin, who could play some shortstop if he needed to. It's not ideal. But if Mason Wynn's your everyday guy and he's through the back injury, I think they signed Crawford for 2 reasons. It was the week of spring training where Mason Wynn had just hurt his back and he was out for a few days and he came right back, but it was still like, is this going to linger? Maybe there needs to be a better backup option than the guy who is on the shelf still with an injured wrist because of surgery, which was Tommy Edman. So they go and say, well, let's get a backup shortstop. Well, Tim Anderson had signed. All those guys were signing. There's a couple others that signed in like the same 3-day period. And it's if they don't sign someone soon, they might miss out on the entire market. And that's when they got Brandon Crawford for a couple mil. Insurance policy is the way I looked at it. I think Mason Wynn's fine now. So do you make a different decision? I'm not saying, I will never say, oh, they should cut this guy. That's not, but I do think there's a conversation to be had about what the role, the utility of the role is and is going to be. So that was the question as to what they do to get Carlson up. If not Crawford, something with him, whether it's maybe he's hurt, IL, maybe they just cut ties. I don't know. If they don't, probably Fermin, simply because they're not really using him, and Crawford is to fill that role, right? He can be that infield guy. Even though the Cardinals said they don't want him to be utility, he could play another spot. He was willing to do it, but that's neither here nor there. Fermin would probably be who would go down if it's not an injury to somebody that we are not sure about what's going on just yet. Thank you to Kevin for the super chat. My goodness, his first super chat on a live stream. Kevin, it means a lot that you figured out how to do one for me. That's awesome, bro. Austin says, lost a lot of weight in 7th grade, could not make a layup for a month. Yeah, I think there's something to that. We were talking about Zach Thompson losing weight on purpose in the offseason, and now the mechanics are different for the reason of just it's a different feeling in that body. Oh, sorry, guys. Bryn thinks Pages would go down. They're actually using Pages, though. They're not using Fermin. They use Pages when Herrera starts and they want to have a better defensive catcher in the 9th inning if they have a lead. That's when they have used Pages, and they've done it. So I feel like he has more of a role than Fermin right now, which is why I think Pages could stay. Ben wants to leave Libby in the pen. He looks great. I agree. I do agree with that. Guys, I am going to have to skip some comments because it's getting late already, and I do have to get up for 7 a.m. radio show tomorrow with Jim the Cat Hayes. 590 The Fan, 590thefan.com. It will be a good show as long as I'm awake for it. Corn will be tuning in spring training through the bitter end every year. That's my guy. That's my guy. Spencer M., what's going on? Curious about Molina's situation. Signing of Marmol 2 weeks before the end of spring, which coincided when Molina was supposed to show up. Does that have anything to do with each other? Maybe. Maybe the Cardinals thought, maybe we do think Yachty in the back of our mind could someday take over. But what's his dedication right now? Not high. Let's go ahead and lock in Ollie and make sure that it's just known that that's what we're going to do moving forward for a little bit. Could be the case. There's some comments I won't be able to get to, and I feel bad about it, but you guys have been bringing it tonight on a Cardinal off day. We don't even have a game to talk about, and you're bringing it. Heart of the Order mentioning Goldie being moved around in the lineup, pulling the trigger on Walker to AAA. You don't do that if you're not frustrated. I don't care what they say. Watch what they do, not what they say. Well, and sure, I was talking about maybe Mo versus Ollie. Ollie can be frustrated, but that doesn't mean something happens. Mozeliak is who has to make the moves. And moving Walker to AAA is not an Ollie move. It's a Mo move. Now, granted, those can happen in conjunction with one another, but who has the final say-so is the front office on a demotion like that. The Cardinals always compete, but do they ever have a true win-now window? No, they don't. By design, they don't. Because what follows the win-now window is a downturn, a rebuild, and they intentionally try to not do those. So that's why they've never really had that. Joey talking about the lack of barrels for Mason Wynn, but he has an elite sweet spot percentage as well, which is a big deal. That's 100% right. Kevin smoked a joint, which is, I guess that's legal now, so go nuts. Do your dreams. All right, we're going to scroll all the way down, and I'm going to try to get to anybody I haven't gotten to yet. Trent, I haven't seen his. Just wanted to say, glad to be back after a short hiatus. Getting ready to have my third son, but glad to hear Cardinal baseball talk. Trent, congratulations, man. Congratulations. That's what matters, man. Your third son. That's awesome. Allison, yes, listen tomorrow morning. Appreciate you for always popping in like you do. Tyler asked, what about O'Neill? Tyler P. asked about O'Neill. What about him? He's been great, and the Cardinals, don't have outfielders performing like that, unfortunately. John says, do you think JC will get a shot this year? It would almost take an injury to where second base opens up a little more, or even third base. Arenado injury, Donovan injury, Gorman injury. I would say JC is a possibility if he's performing as well, but if not, then it's going to be hard to find him on his team. They would want him to get playing time, so it would take an injury is basically where I'm at on that. But it's a good question. I like JC. I talked about him in spring, wrote about him in spring. I think he's got a future. Harold wrote his name in and erased it, but the most noticeable is, well, who was it, Harold? I see a lot of players trying to hit for power at every at-bat. Personally, would love to see more contact for more of the lineup. Well, I don't know whose name you said, but I agree. Like, look, here's the thing. You're saying they're trying to hit for power every at bat. They are last place in MLB in homers. So I don't know if I can confirm that being true or not true on the home run thing, on trying to hit for power, because they're not producing power. So if selling out for power is what they're doing, holy crap, they're doing a poor job of it, right? So that's kind of the rub on that one. Leo Snake thanking me for the video and insight. Well, hey, man, glad to be here. Glad to be here. And thank you for the super chat. My goodness, Brandon gives a super chat and says, here's to the sweep this weekend. I don't think anybody's got a problem with that. I don't think one person in the live chat would mind a Cardinal sweep this weekend. Let's see here. Korn would like to nominate Jim Edmonds for hitting coach. I don't think it's crazy. But I also think, they like Turner Ward, but also it doesn't matter if they like him if the team's not performing. I could see both sides on that. Fermin, the new Greg Garcia, according to John M., new Greg Garcia, Descalso, Aaron Miles type would have been Sosa's role, but JoJo was worth it. Yep, that was a good trade to get JoJo. For me, I thought, man, light hitting infielder. He can have a little bit of a glove, can run a little bit, but he's really turned it on offensively in AAA this year. It would be nice to get to see what he could do, but they have not found a way to get him in the lineup. Ryan says, thoughts on Cardinals wanting to do renovations to Busch. Will the public funding take place? If the Chiefs can win back-to-back Super Bowls and still say no, anything could happen. Ryan, I am not going to delve into that much on this live. I just did like a 40-minute pod on that specifically. So if you want kind of some thoughts, I was kind of just laying it out for people. I don't drop too many opinions on that yet just because it's early to do so. Wait till the Cardinals actually announce it because they haven't yet, right? They didn't intend to announce that. It got reported, and so they had to talk about it. But they may still be a couple few years away from asking for that money, so we'll see. Aaron wants to know if I've been watching any Jomez coverage lately. That's disc golf, baby. More entertaining than the Cardinals have been. I haven't, and it's probably out of embarrassment for myself because I haven't been out to the course yet this year, like since spring started. I did in like probably February once. I tried to go, honest, this is true. I tried to go to my place in northern Georgia on the way back from spring training because I drive there to Jupiter every year. And it's kind of hilly, and I couldn't do it, man. My body was I'm in some bad shape. I got to get some exercise. Like the hills of it, my calf was eating me alive, and I just played a bunch of pickleball in Jupiter with the riders, and so that's probably why. But I was like, I got to stop. I didn't even play the full 18. I had to stop halfway. So because I'm not playing disc golf right now, out of my own embarrassment, I don't watch the coverage is kind of why. How would I rate, Heart of the Order wants to know, scale of 1 to 100, rate the hotness of Turner Ward's seat. I would say anything 80 and above, you would be like, all right, they really might fire this guy. I think it's right around a 50. It's not nothing. It shouldn't be nothing. It's probably lower than Cardinals fans hope because I know everybody right now is like, oh, fire the hitting coach. But people say that all the time. But is it 0? I don't think it's 0. I think May goes bad, and you're going to pump that up to 70, 80, and we're really having a conversation. Because, again, is it his fault? Maybe not. But you cannot just stand idly by if this thing goes off the rails offensively. That's especially if you're Mo, and you go, well, son of a B, I fixed the pitching. What do you want me to do? The offense was supposed to be self-sufficient. If I'm Mo and June 1st, they're still hitting like this, and they're a handful of games below 500, yeah, that hot seat's got to be in the 85 to 90 range at that point. It's only to 50, but each game where they get shut out or they don't play well or they don't hit well and the approach looks poor, yeah, Turner Ward's probably a lovely man. That's not relevant to whether or not this team is putting up offensive numbers. And if the hitting coach is not there in order to facilitate good offense, what is he being paid to do is a fair question. That's all. I'm not advocating fire the guy, but I think if fans want to go on that track, I can understand why, because there's got to be something that gives if it continues. But I don't think 1 month is enough of a sample to say it's time to do that. And I don't think the Cardinals think that either. Ryan says everyone turn into Hot Take Central tomorrow. They should. If you like my content, you know that Jimmy the Cat Hayes is better as a broadcaster than me. Him and me are going to be talking baseball on 590 a.m. on your radio dial at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Yeah, more like 7:07 a.m. all the way to 10. Now, we won't talk only baseball. The show goes off the rails. But him and me shooting the breeze with Cole is going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited for it in the morning. So JC, I don't know what he's been playing, but he plays probably, I would guess, second and third. And if they've played him at any short, that would be good too. That would be a good thing too. All right. Brandon, I did thank Brandon for the super chat. Brian says, I think they're just trying to hit the ball, let alone for power. Yeah, they're like, what are you talking about power? I'm just trying to get it, just hit it, make contact. Walks, singles, and doubles. Stop trying to hit homers. I don't care about personal stats. That's what Jeff says. Look, guys, I don't know if they're trying to hit homers. If they are, I don't think it's working. They've hit fewer than every other team. So this like narrative that, oh, they're just selling out for power, I don't think is true. I just don't think it's what they're doing. Me personally. Jake says he's in North Georgia. Where am I playing? Is that Hiawassee you just said there? The place is called, give me a minute, West Side Disc Golf Course in Rocky Face, Georgia, just south of Chattanooga. If you're in Northern Georgia, you've probably played it, especially if you're a disc golf guy, Jake. Freaking awesome course. But they're actually doing some construction as of February, so maybe you got to wait till it's like ready to go. But yeah, Kevin said, great chat, my man. I only mentioned the joint because you said everybody should be drinking. Yeah, and I don't drink during these. Maybe someday I will. I haven't yet, but sometimes you guys might drive me to do it. Who knows? Brian says golf's 18 2 days in a row, beginning of the year. Screwed my back up for 2 weeks. Yep. Guys, it's coming on 3 years ago, I think, in June. There's always a golf tournament in Columbia that my radio show with KTGR is typically a part of, and we do our live show from the golf course after, which is kind of nice, but there's like not anybody there after the tournament. I wish that there'd be like do it at the bar and let everybody's having a good time and I can, be part of the atmosphere. But we're just kind of on the patio watching some golf. It's really cool. And we play in the morning. That was June of, I want to say it was either 21 or 22. I can't remember how long I've been doing this radio show. Probably 22. It's almost 2 years ago, I suppose. And I got a Charlie horse in my calf where I was like, for a year, until the next time I played the golf tournament, I was still feeling calf pain. And the reason I got the Charlie horse after that golf outing was because maybe I was drinking beers and not water on the golf course. So that happens. Drink your water. Hydrate out there when you're playing golf this summer. Mike thinks he needs to drink during the games. That might be. That might be. Well, here's the deal. We've gone really, really long. I feel bad about this because on Twitter, I got all these questions that I thought would have been good for a live stream. But I figure if anybody wanted those questions asked or answered, they would have re-asked them in the stream. If not, what I might end up doing is just a quick video tomorrow answering the Twitter questions, the ones that I didn't get to today. 69 likes, that's nice and everything. Get us to 70 for Mark McGwire, but that is going to do it for this edition of the show. Like the stream on your way out. Hit that red subscribe button. Mike, thank you so much for joining. Thank you guys so much. This was good. I didn't know we would have this much action on a Thursday night when we didn't even have a Cardinal game to talk about the night before. Always give me feedback at b-schaefer12 on Twitter. My DMs are open. Thank you guys. And I will say, if you like watching or listening to my content ad-free, I have a way to subscribe on Spotify. Yes, it costs a little bit of money. I think it's $4.99 a month. But it ends up being that you don't have ads on the podcast for Spotify. So if that's interesting to you as well, send me a DM on Twitter. Tweet at me. It doesn't matter. I will get you that link if you don't find it. I do put it in the link description to all the videos on YouTube, though. That's going to do it, though, for this edition. Thank you guys so much. You have been a wonderful crowd. A lot of good questions tonight, but that's going to do it for today. We will talk to you next time on B-Schaeff Daily Live. Peace.